Hello, my name is Zora, and you're watching Local Vibes.
Thank you so much for joining us. How do you feel after that performance?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel solid for sure.
Awesome, awesome. So before we dive into your discography, I'd like to hear more about your journey as an artist. So when and where did you first find yourself behind the mic?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in music. My whole family is all kind of generational artists and like club musicians. My dad also did DJing, so I kind of have always kind of been surrounded by music in a sense. It was more kind of a ticking time bomb of like when, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I started originally on piano, and I did classical piano lessons until I was around like 6 or 7, and then from there I started singing in school. And yeah, from there, from I think like sixth grade when I turned 11 to now, I kind of went from doing originally gospel music to doing trained opera singing, and then I attempted to get into the jazz program but didn't get in, which was a blessing in disguise,
Uh-huh.
because then I ended up learning how to write music, and I like learned how to produce my own stuff as well. So I started writing music, and I was like, I want to be a pop star, and then started
Hmm.
doing me, and now we're here.
Yeah, yeah. And you have multiple singles and even an album under your belt. And your debut album, Z1, received incredible praise, including from Rolling Stone, which is called it one of 22's most thrilling debuts. So how did that feel to receive such widespread recognition, and what do you think resonated most with listeners?
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, I think it still feels kind of unreal. If I'm being for real, like I have been feeling very heavy imposter syndrome, and I feel like all artists do. They just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think I feel great. You know what I mean? I feel great that I was able to kind of work on something that I hold very dear to my heart for so long, and actually put it out into the world and have it be received so positively. I'm very happy, and I'm very grateful that the people that resonate with my music are also able to do that as well, because I've met so many people and connected with so many people over online, or like people that can like consider themselves like fans of me. I always just say like family or friends, but like people like that listen to my music. I feel like I've met and learned so many more people since making it. So I'm just very happy to be here, honestly.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And Z1, it blends such a wide range of genres, from techno, pop, and soul. So how do you approach that sort of genre blending in your music? And is it a challenging process at all?
Oof, it is definitely a challenging process. I would say not for me, but I think sometimes when you do like a lot of genre bending things, sometimes it's hard for people to receive that, which I think is more of something that I've kind of dealt with along the way. I consider myself genre bending in a lot of ways. Of doing pop, I do hip hop. I'm a singer and a rapper. I do rock at times, hyper pop. Like I do a lot of stuff. I love all music basically, except for a few genres, but we don't got to get into that. I'm kidding. But yeah, I think for me, it can be a little tough to kind of break through the ceiling, especially as a black femme and like as a black trans femme, just because there's often in the industry it's very monolithic. Like when you're supposed to be an artist, when you're like a singer, you're supposed to just be a singer. If you're a rapper, you're supposed to just be a rapper.
Mhm.
um so I think even as I've been coming out with more music, and when I initially debuted, that was always kind of a thing that I was working against the grain on, of just like, oh yeah, like I also sing, like I sang on that single, but this next single I'm gonna be rapping, and they're like, oh, so you're a rapper? And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, like I mean, yes, but like I'm like both. Like oh, so you're like what? It's just, it can be a little confusing for people to kind of wrap their heads around, but it also just makes me want to keep doing what I do, just because it's always great to just push the boundaries of music and just like push the limits and just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. The music industry could definitely be monolithic. I like the way you describe that because, people, the minute somebody tries one thing, they're getting criticized for, it's not staying within the boundaries that people draw them for some reason.
For real.
And growing up, you brought up wanting to be a pop star, and coming into Minneapolis, what are some pop stars that also kind of embrace those queer, identities that you look up to and like love collaborating with?
Yeah. I think like Minneapolis local people
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, well I can go on and on about my local peeps. Literally, like okay, so I got to shout out my girl Ro with the slash, Miss Ro. I love her down. Ro, someone like all of these. There are like a bunch of people. Yeah, Dawn in the ballroom scene as well. I feel like ever since I've started doing like music and started being able to kind of get more involved in the community here. It's been very embracing to be surrounded by a lot of other queer community in this city as well. But yeah, I like wouldn't be nothing without like all of my like sisters and friends in my community here. I have so much love for the music scene here. Like it's so fabulous for real.
Yeah. And so, remind me if I'm wrong, but you relocated to the Twin Cities when you were 21.
Yes.
So tell me about that process and what it was like to come into the Twin Cities. Did you feel this like level of comfort knowing that it is a progressive, it's a more of a progressive city. More people feel comfortable enough to be able to embrace, themselves in this particular way.
Yeah. I think it definitely was kind of a culture shock for a little bit for me, just because I was afraid when I first moved here. Like I was coming from like a very jaded like mindset about myself and my identity and like how I felt and moved in the world. But I noticed when I moved here that everybody was just like so much more open to be who they were and like was more embracing. And I thought that was really sweet as well. And I think that also kind of it spreads throughout each community here too. Like it's not just one specific community, which I also like as well. But yeah, I would say like both of my towns I consider, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, like those are both very like open and very accepting places, and I'm very happy to be here. Honestly, I honestly don't ever want to leave Minneapolis. Like I'd love to buy a house here someday or something.
Yeah. So coming from Los Angeles, were there any sounds or styles of pop music or techno, soul that you try to bring, to the scene here?
Yeah, kind of everything that I grew up on. I have a lot of inspirational artists that I look up to, like Sophie and like Charlie XCX, Megan Thee Stallion, Janet Jackson. Like a lot of like those kind of people were my original inspiration. Britney Spears and like Prince, especially. Like Prince also, of course, Minneapolis, like home. But I think those are a lot of people that kind of really help shape the sound in like the public eye. For me, what really helped curate my sound and kind of hone it in was like listening to music with my mom on the way home or the way to school on the way home. And then also going to club gigs with my dad when I was like a kid, literally. Like I was so young going into those clubs, but like there was so much music that I retained during those times that I feel like now I'm able to be inspired by and put out through my music as well. So yeah.
Were there any kind of connections within the music industry that you were able to inherit through your father?
Yeah, I think that, just in general, I kind of have always just had a lot of love for the people, in the music industry as a whole. I definitely like have to shout out like Naughty from Gully Boys as well. Like I love them so much, and I'm like so grateful that like I'm able to kind of introduce myself to like more musicians and more community members and things like that. My mom also kind of introduced me to a lot of the film side of the industry, which I think was also great because I feel like at some point I kind of want to break into that if I ever decide to like maybe stop doing music, which I don't think would ever happen, but I like have always wanted to kind of break into the film industry as well. So I've kind of I kind of have just been floating, if you will. I'm kind of a floater.
Yeah. So I like how you brought up those artists that you had taken a lot of inspiration from earlier, because I also like to congratulate you on your recent release, Hush, which is absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
So were there any creative risks or bold decisions that you made on producing Hush, and were there any standout pieces of music from those artists that you had tried to emulate in any sort of way?
Hush was definitely very vulnerable for me, and this whole next album it feels like a very high, a much different progression of where I am and where I'm coming from and where I'm gonna go. With Hush, I kind of did things different for the production. I ended up sampling myself, so the song that I sampled on Hush isn't out yet, but it's gonna be out soon. But not before Hush, obviously.
Yeah.
But basically I kind of like from a production standpoint, like wrote this song and then just started like doing like a 30-second part of it and then took that and looped it and then made that Hush and then just like wrote a different song over it. So then it's almost like I'm like releasing two songs, if that makes sense. But yeah, with Hush, it was definitely very vulnerable lyrically as well. There are a lot of topics that I talk about on this album about being loved as a trans person and being desired and feeling kind of a lack of protection around trans people and trans bodies, especially with the politics and with like everything just becoming so like like it's just been so terrible. There's like so many trans bills that get passed like every day,
Yeah.
and it's just like Jesus. So this album's kind of going into that a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely very vulnerable for me.
Yeah. And aside from mediums such as, music or even film, how else are you able to feel comfortable, being yourself, not only within the studio but with outside of the studio,
Yeah. Honestly, like music surrounds my life. Even outside of it, I like definitely am always at a local show. Like again, like I love seeing Ro. I want her to get back on the stage, but I love seeing her live. I love seeing all my girls.
Mm-hmm.
The Gully Boys I love seeing live. I'm kind of a nerd as well. So if I'm being honest, if I'm not doing music, I'm probably playing video games
Nice.
or watching Doctor Who with my fiance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of boring. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
on stage, it's just like I'm playing video games.
Yeah.
You know.
That's sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought your fiance, so how is that like? I'm sure they've been, your rock. Is there anything that they also contribute to your music?
Oh my gosh, literally everything. I think, yeah, I feel so corny. I'm like, I love you. But yeah, I think that is also a big part of this album as well, because there is a huge part of it that can be very depressing, of being like, oh, it's all about trans bills and like how depressing everything is. But the kind of hidden secret of the album is that it ends with love, and it ends with me being embraced by my fiance, and that is kind of the loving message that it ends on. And it's very special to me because I'm grateful that I found love in this life. It's very rare for trans femmes to be loved outwardly and publicly and to be embraced, and I'm just very happy that I met Charlie always adds to my music like every way, so I love him.
That's really sweet. That's really, really sweet. So I guess I'd like to shift more into what you're doing in the future. Your next performance date is coming up on September 27th at the Green Room, and you are going to be sharing a bill with Summer, Euphoria's Room, DJ Jupiter, and Zyna for Zyniverse Volume 3. So how does it feel to be part of such a diverse and exciting lineup?
I'm so excited for that show, for real. I'm very much looking forward to it. I actually talked to Zyna like a few days ago, and just like caught up on some things and talked about like what we were looking forward to. For me, I'm just excited that there are so many different like varieties and genres of Black femmes in one space. Again, kind of going to that monolithic thing that we were talking about. There's so many different like styles and so many different genres on stage, and so many different kind of like just everyone is so different in what they're bringing, and so special and so talented as well. So I'm just so beyond honored and so beyond grateful to be on this bill, and very, very excited for Green Room. Y'all should come through for real.
Yeah. And by diving headfirst into the Twin Cities local music scene, you've become a large figure right beside Zyna, right beside Summer and Euphoria's Room. And I guess touching back into the fact that you relocated to the Twin Cities, what role has the Twin Cities played in your development as an artist? I know it's pretty similar to what we've been talking about, but is there any sort of other ways,
Yeah, I think the Twin Cities is honestly where I feel like I found myself, if I'm being honest, like my new self. I feel like before I moved here, I'd been kind of floating for a really long time. Like I had the platform, I had the plan, I just need the platform type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I had so many ideas and so many places of where I wanted to go and concepts, but it felt like I just didn't really know myself, and like I didn't really like know how to push myself forward and where to push myself. But I think with moving here, it was able to kind of give me a little bit of more breathing space of being like, okay, now that you're here, like you're 21, just get a job, and like maybe like, because I hadn't done any like albums yet, that's just then. So it was like, just maybe like work on some music in your free time and just chill out. You know what I mean? And from that, it turned into something way more special and way more soul fulfilling for me as well. So I love the Twin Cities. I love Minneapolis for sure. And St. Paul. I got to rep St. Paul too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How did you make those initial connections with people within the scene? Did you just go to shows and just kind of talk to people after them? What was that like?
Yeah, honestly, I wish I was still as bold as I was, because I like a lot of the people that I met, it was just me kind of like running up to them being like, hey, like I'm Zora and I think you're sickening and fab.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hang out. You're super talented. Like just like really just like kind of going for it.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that I did in certain ways, because there are so many people that I've been able to kind of connect with in like also work with as well, and like make beautiful music together as well, which like is also coming soon. So I'm very excited and very happy that like the community here in the music scene has embraced me.
Yeah. And finally, your mission is to spread awareness, positivity and freedom of expression in your music. So how do you direct these themes into your work?
Yeah. For me, I think my number one thing is always going to be authenticity. I've always considered myself a little weird. Like, I have, like, not to be, like, cringe about it, but, like, it gives Riverdale, like, I don't fit in. No Dylan Sprouse. Or Cole Sprouse. I don't know who it is, child. But, anyways, I think for me, what always reigns true is just saying exactly what's on your mind, and no matter what that looks like, just being fully open. I think for me in my music, I always try to at least try to like spread across the or to send across the message of no judgment and like being free and like always building community and always being a girl's girl specifically. And I hope that that can really kind of resonate with the people that listen to me as well, because that's just always what I kind of how I live my life, and how I think everybody should live their life is just like accept everyone and love everyone and free Palestine. And yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So I think for me, that is kind of, I hope that that can kind of translate through music for
Yeah,
sure.
and
But
it's important that there are people that are staying true to themselves, being very authentic.
yeah, absolutely.
So to kind of end this off, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? I know you mentioned having a project coming out soon, having the show. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, thank you for tuning in. I love y'all so much. I do have another project coming out. You should come to Green Room and support some talented Black femmes. Free Palestine and Israeli occupation. And yeah, I think honestly that's really it. Thank you so much for having me. I've had such a blast being here.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much.